This is the formula. Covariance of xy upon the variance of x square root, variance of y square root, right? Okay. So this really effectively is, if I write this down again here, this becomes yeah. Okay? This root n comes out of this. So this totally becomes n. Right? And this n will go with this n. So is the form. Now see what happens. So if I multiply x and y by quantity alpha, this will get multiplied by alpha square. This inside quantity will get multiplied by alpha square. So outside will get multiplied by some alpha. Right? This quantity will get multiplied by alpha square. Square roots outside will get multiplied by some alpha. Numerator denominator will get multiplied by alpha square, they will cancel. Okay. So this is a quantity which does not depend upon scale. Now, if it does not depend upon scale, then it must have some absolute interpretation. So there are some boundaries between which those quantities will lie. Okay, generally you must be told that correlation lies between plus 1 and minus 1. You must have heard this, right? Okay, correlation between two terms, two variables, lies between plus 1 and minus 1. What is the highest possible correlation that two variables can have? Plus 1. Why? Can you argue from this formula that the highest possible correlation between two variables will be plus 1? Think. Can you argue? See, what is that? No limit. Simple idea. No variable can have a stronger correlation with any other variable with itself. So x cannot have a stronger correlation with any other variable than x itself. Right. So if I want to find the highest possible correlation there can be, I must replace one of these y's by x's. Right? So if I did this, what will I get? This will be xi minus x bar. This will also be xi minus x bar. Yeah? So this will be xi minus x bar square. This will be square root xi minus, so the ratio will be equal to 1. So the highest possible correlation between two variables has to be 1. Right? Highest positive correlation. You also told that the highest negative correlation that there can be between two variables is minus 1. Can you prove? Again I am writing this back again. Can you prove that the highest possible negative correlation between two variables is minus 1? So the strongest possible negative correlation that x can have is with minus x. If x goes up, then minus x goes up exactly by the same amount. So it's the strongest negative. So instead of y, let me think of minus x. So this would be minus x minus of minus x bar. Right? Because each x I multiply minus 1, x bar also will multiply minus 1. So this term inside is actually x bar minus xi. This term inside is really x bar minus xi, which is nothing but minus 1 into xi minus x bar. Okay? Sure, is this idea clear to everybody? So, I can actually write this minus 1 here, minus, right? And then this will also become x minus xi minus x bar with the square है तो sign आगे this will not matter. So this will be minus 1 and then the ratio will be minus 1. So the strongest negative correlation that can be between two variables is minus 1. So the critical point that I want to understand is when you have covariance between two variables, right? It is scale dependent. So covariance is not a good measure. It's a good idea. It's a good idea. It's a wonderful idea, but it's not a very practical idea. So what does the correlation do? It makes this wonderful idea a practical idea by changing that idea a little bit. Right? What is changing? How do you change that idea? What is the problem with covariance? It was scale dependent. You remove the scale by dividing by something so that the scale would go away, the scale effect would go away. Okay, so let me now tell you one more thing. If I multiply each value of x by alpha, the average value will also get multiplied by alpha. So suppose I now decide to remove the scale effect by dividing covariance by x bar into y bar, the mean. Each value of xy multiplied by alpha, covariance will multiply by alpha square. The mean will get multiplied by alpha, mean of y will get multiplied by alpha. So these two will get multiplied by alpha square. This will go. So again the scale effect can go. So I can remove the scale effect. Scale effect ही निकालना था. तो covariance xy को मैं x bar और y bar से भी divide करूँ, वो standard deviation करके square क्यों करूँ? Right? So let's call this the Mumbai University formula. Right? But nobody uses this formula. Right? Everybody uses Pearson's formula. What's wrong with this formula? Scale निकालना तो there are many ways of removing the scale ना. एक ही नहीं है. Scale तो मैं ऐसे भी निकाल सकता हूँ. Root x bar y bar से divide करके. Is the point clear? So why is this an unhappy? Why is this not so acceptable? Why not divide by x bar into y bar? Why divide by the standard deviation of x into a standard deviation of y?
X bar and y bar, you are not taking care of the sign effect.
Exactly. One reason could of course be that if covariance is negative and if x bar is also negative, then the correlation will turn positive. No? Even when the association is negative, my answer will be positive. So it will not preserve signs. Right? And more seriously, what if x bar is 0? Or what if y bar is 0? ये डिवाइड नहीं होगा ना, तो ये एग्जिस्ट भी नहीं करेगा. So beauty is variance of x is always positive and always exists unless all x's are identical. Right? In which case you will not look at correlation, covariance between, because x move ही नहीं करता है तो covariance क्या निकालेगा उसका, right? So x and y. So basically because variance of x and variance of y will always be positive. And so if you divide by them, the sign of the covariance, the fraction will not change. The sign of the fraction will not change, and the denominator will always be non-zero, so the quantity will always be defined. Right? That is why you use the Pearson's correlation coefficient in the form that it is given. Right? Another beautiful thing now. Now look at the numerator and denominator. The numerator is an average, the denominator is an average. Now suppose in the real world there is some correlation between maths and literature abilities for the whole population of Mumbai city as a whole. That is a very critical idea for you to understand. You have to estimate that number, that correlation. आप कर तो नहीं सकते हैं, तो आपने एक सैंपल लिया, सैंपल का कोवेरियंस अगर निकालोगे, तो what you see एक correlation निकालोगे, there is a average divided by another average. And as the sample size becomes larger and larger and larger, this average will go to its population quantity, this average will go to its population measure, and therefore the sample measure of the correlation will get closer and closer to the true population correlation. So you will get a better and better guess as you get more and more information. That's why the law of large number is such an important idea. Right? So the sample covariances will get closer and closer, sample correlation will get closer and closer to the population correlation, right? Population correlation. So let's take a stock of what we have studied today. We have studied the idea of a random variable. Has everybody internalized the idea of a random variable? Right? Okay. Then take the following sums as an assignment for the next week. Right? And you must tell me okay. So suppose we are tossing 4 coins. We are tossing 4 coins. Okay. Let H. So we are tossing 4 coins. Okay. So what is H? Number of heads on a given toss. What are the possible values that H can take? 0 to 4. They can be either all heads or no heads. Right? Is H a random variable?
Matter of chance.
Yes. Right? Give me the probability distribution of H. Okay? Okay? Find at least 2 heads and at most 3 heads. At least 2 heads and at most 2 heads. That is quite simple, right? You have to write the entire sample space. H, 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 T, H, T, T. In fact, this is the kind of question it asks you in your selection interviews, literally. Alright? Yeah? So then you must identify the event. So what is the event of at least 2 heads? So 0 heads is an event A, 1 head is an event, 2 heads is an event, at least 2 heads, 3 heads is an event, 4 heads is an event. So at least 2 heads is the event that there are 2 heads, union 3 heads, union 4 heads. You have to find the probabilities accordingly. See, the probability that there are at least 2 heads is what? 2 heads, 3 heads, 4 heads. Right? 4 heads is the outcome H, 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 H. 3 heads is any of the outcomes H, 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 T, 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 H, 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 T, H, 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 T. Right? Each of them are mutually exclusive outcomes. So if you are thinking of the set of all these 4 outcomes as an event, it is union of 4 sets and they are mutually exclusive. So that union will probability of A union B union C for events which are mutually exclusive will give you that probability. Right? Similarly, find the probability of at most 3 heads. Again, no heads, 1 head, 2 head, 3 heads. Right? That's how you will find those probabilities. I want you to actually work these out. Right? So what I want you to do is to first tell me the probability of 0 heads, 1 head, 2 head, 3 heads, 4 heads. Right? So if X is the number of heads. You understand that X is a random variable because H is an outcome. You're associating number 4 with it. So you're defining a function. Right? You're defining a function. So write the heads down. Define, show me what function is. From those inverse images, find the relevant probabilities. Right? And show me the detailed working of that. That you have to give on next Sunday. Everybody has to hand in the assignments when you come in with me next Sunday. Right? And you will get the marks for that immediately after the Sunday onwards. Every week there will be an assignment which you will have to do. Yeah? Okay. The second sum that I am going to give you is Okay, so suppose there are the following numbers. Yeah? Find the variance and the standard deviation of these numbers. Simple idea. Okay? Right? Okay. Then, without calculating, without doing a fresh calculation, find A and B for this is 1.9, okay?
One.
These are all points. Huh? Without doing a fresh calculation, you have to tell me what the variance and the standard deviation of the next set of numbers is. Without doing summation xi minus x bar or huh? ठीक है? Okay? Third sum. X is, I'll write the values of x, 2, 4, 3, 2, 5, 4, 6, 3, 9. Okay?
2, 4.
2, 4, 3. 2, 5, 4, 6, 3, 9. And y is 1, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 6, 4, 6, 5. How many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay? Yeah?
In y after 6, it's 3 or 2.
2. Right. Okay? So calculate covariance between x and y. Okay? Then let z be this is z. Yeah? You must also find the covariance between x and z, but without doing any calculation. You must find the covariance between x and y, you can use calculations. Yeah? But you must find the covariance between x and z without using any calculation. Without doing any new calculation. On the basis of covariance between x and y, you will tell me what is the covariance between x and z. Right? Okay. And the last thing that you will do is go to the internet and find out something called coefficient of variation. There is something called the coefficient of variation. You will generally find in your in your simple text, or if you go to Google, coefficient of variation. Understand the coefficient of variation and tell me what its strengths and weaknesses are. What is it used for? And what do you think are its strengths and weaknesses? Coefficient of variation. Yeah? Right, so again to take a recap of what we actually done a lot today. We have understood what is a random variable. We have understood what is the law of large numbers. Why is it important? We have understood the idea of the arithmetic mean, the idea of the variance. The variance is also a mean. We have understood the idea of covariance. as a type of variance. Formula is the same really, except xi minus x bar square के बदले xi minus x bar yi minus y bar. So variance is nothing but the covariance of a variable itself. Can you now argue for me that the variance is always to be positive? The variance must necessarily be positive? No, give me better reasons. ये तो formula हो गया ना square. Intuitively बोलो ना. It can never be negative. Variance can never be negative. It's an average distance, so it cannot be negative, right? It's also the covariance of a variable itself. A variable's covariance itself can never be negative. When will the covariance be zero then? When all the values of the x are the same. X doesn't vary with itself at all. Which means that x must be constant, otherwise x has to vary with itself. If x goes up, x goes up. So only when which x will not go up with itself is because it doesn't move at all. Yeah, so therefore variance will be zero only if x is constant, otherwise it will change. The standard deviation is nothing but the square root of the variance. Then Pearson's correlation coefficient. It is nothing but covariance divided by the standard deviations of x and y, because to make it unit free by preserving the sign and making sure that the denominator always exists. If you have put x bar and y bar in the denominator, then you are not sure whether x bar and y bar is equal to 0. If it is equal to 0, either x bar or y bar in the fraction will not exist. Or if x bar or y bar have a sign negative from a different sign from the covariance, it is a negative sign if either of the x bar or y bar, then it will actually change the sign of the coefficient. Because if the numerator is negative and the denominator is negative, then the fraction will become positive. Right? Okay, so if that is what you understood today, then your Sunday morning is well spent. Right? Do you have any doubts? Yeah.
So I have two doubts actually.
Yeah.
In real life, is there any rule or something for consideration of the sample size regarding?
No, there isn't a rule. It says better the smaller sample size the better. The larger sample size the better.
Yeah.
Right. But the accurate sample size will actually depend upon what the population variance is. And we generally don't know that. So it's not really good enough. All that you really have is a bigger sample than is better than a smaller sample. But it's very hard to actually find out that this is an adequate sample, because you see x bar doesn't ever exactly become equal to mu, population mean. As the sample size increases, x bar keeps on getting closer and closer and closer to mu. It goes to mu only in the limit. Right. So therefore, there isn't a sample size which is enough. It all depends on how close you want x bar to be to mu, but for which you need to know the population variance. So you really can't, unless you know the population variance, you can't really fix a sample size. If you know, then there is something called a Chebyshev's inequality, which will tell you what the sample size is if you want to get a certain amount of accuracy. But those are not really very helpful ideas. The larger the sample size, the better, is the only really thing that one can actually tell you with a hand on one's heart.
And regarding variance, I'm calling it the average distance of observations from the mean.
Yeah.
But should I not call it the square distance?
No, because we have measured the distance as a square, no? When I said this is the scale, this is 0, this is 1, and this is 2. I have said I will measure the distance between these and these by 1 minus 2 square.
Yes.
Right, because 1 minus 2 square and 2 minus 1 square give me the same distance. So therefore the distance between x1 and x bar is, this is the distance.
But this is possible in case of 1, if the difference is 1. But what about?
Yeah, so if x2 minus x bar square, the distance from x2 from x bar. x3 minus x bar square, the distance from x3 minus x from x bar. So the total distance will be x1 minus x bar square plus x2 minus x bar square plus x3 minus 1 divided by 3, that is the average distance. Right?
Yes, I am dividing it by n. So
Yeah, so it becomes an average distance. No? Yeah, and if I put a square root on the whole thing, then it becomes a standard deviation.
In which case we use the standard deviation, in which case we use the variance.
Both of them are equivalent because both of them are measuring the same quantity. So there is no particular reason why you measure. Like for example, when we did correlation from covariance, we divided the standard deviation of x, standard deviation of y. Why? Because variance of x will go by alpha square. Variance of y will go by alpha square. If you take a square root, then the variance of x will go up only by alpha. Variance of y will go by alpha. So alpha square will cancel. You wanted to have that facility. So you divided by square root of x, square root of y. But in general, there is no particular hard and fast rule. Depends on what kind of a function that you have.
But isn't variance, you have to scale because it's a larger number? That's
Variance
why
is scale dependent.
Yeah.
But the
it's
standard
also
deviation
variable.
will also depend upon scale, no?
Yeah.
Because each value of x, if you multiply each value of x by alpha, the variance will get multiplied by alpha square, the standard deviation will get multiplied by alpha.
But variance could be 10,500. That's
Yeah.
why we use standard deviation because it's going to be a smaller number. And
Not necessarily. It's going to be a smaller number, but the smaller number and the larger number don't, because ultimately what we want is we want some measure of, so what she's saying is that the dependence on scale is lower.
Right.
Right, but suppose alpha is 0.1, then the variance will actually be lower, no, than the standard deviation, because the variance will get multiplied by alpha square. So the variance will be scaled up by 0.01, where the standard deviation gets scaled up by 0.1. Right, so there is no really hard and fast rule.